Hey everybody, RC here. Welcome to a new video. This one's just kind of off the cuff. I had been asked to put together a video of just some of the things that I liked about bowl-bound college football. You may have seen my series. I did an 8-video series on the game itself and basically how to handle each part of the season and everything in the game. Gave a lot of looks at different web page, different pages in the game and how things worked and basically how to go through the game. This one's going to be a little different. It's not going to show you how to actually do anything. It's going to be more or less me talking about what I like and what I don't like in the game. I'll try to make it as brief as I can, but I just kind of want to make sure I hit a few things. To give a little bit of a recap, Gray Dog Software Studios created this game in 2005. So yes, as of today, it is 11 years old. However, there have not been a lot of text-based college football games on the market. In fact, since I started playing text games around the turn of the century, my first one ever was Baseball Mogul, and they did have one called Football Mogul. And that was probably my first football game, and it was a pro football game. There is also Front Office Football, which is another pro football game, and that one currently is on its 7th edition, I think, but it's pro football. The company that makes Front Office Football, which is Solsysmic Software, did release a college football game called The College Years, and it was a very good game. Did not work for multiplayer, and honestly, I haven't played it in a long, long time. I do remember I liked the game. It was the first college game I ever saw, and so I bought it, loved it, because nobody else had anything. And then a few years later, Bowl-Bound came out, and that opened the door to online leagues for me, and I have never looked back, to be honest with you. And having played both games, and those are honestly the only two games on the market of any note. There may be a few niche ones, but as far as advertised and knowledgeable, that people know about, that's it, the College Years and Bowl-Bound college football. So even though it's 11 years old, though, it's still very viable. People still use it. I'm currently in 2 online leagues. One league we have about 40 to 50 owners. The other league we have 70 to 80 owners, and that's, out of 120 some odd schools. That's some pretty huge numbers, for an 11-year-old game. Now, keeping in mind, it is text-based. So there is no graphics, there's no 2D, 3D simulation or graphic engine. Some of you may play Football Manager, which is probably the most well-known text-based sim game out there, and it deals with we call it soccer here in America, European football, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, things of that nature. They put out a new release basically every year. There's a baseball one from Out of the Park Studios called OOTP, Out of the Park. They basically put out a new version of the baseball game every year. As I mentioned, Solsysmic Software, they're on their 7th edition. Excuse me, it's not every year, but every few years. So for those of us that play college football and realize the appeal of college football, at least nationally, we're just not sure why the game of college football has not gotten much love from the designing side of the gaming industry. Because, 2 games in 20 years and 2 games in 15 years, and it's been 11 years since the last release, certainly seems to be a void with a lot of potential in the market. But anyway, that's a little bit of background on the game, where it came from, what it does. So there are no graphics. Let's get into what I like about it. Now, this is what we call the home screen, okay? And the first thing, this button right here, my favorite button in the game. No matter where I am at in the game, no matter what screen I go to, no matter what section I go to, if I hit that button, it brings me back to this screen. And this left toolbar and this lower informational bar stay the same in every screen of the game. So, you know, it keeps a standard look through the whole game. So from your home screen down here, you can see your email and a number. That's your number of new emails. So if you have that when you get to the, you know, and this is the screen that you come to when you first log into your team. So this is the first screen that you'll see logging into the game. If there's a number, then you come up here and you click check email. Now what's interesting is this is your weekly checklist. This changes depending on what week of the season you're in. And every week will be something different. So like right now we're in recruiting. So this is basically what you will see every week of recruiting. When you get to the regular season, you'll see another list. When you get to job offers, you'll see another list. When you get to training camp stuff, you'll see a different list. But it will basically give you a checklist of everything you've got to do that week. So it's very user-friendly. You know, a new person that's never played the game can basically log in and go, oh, it's telling me to check my email. Well, I click on it. Oh, there's my email. And I can click on the email, and I can, you know, you double-click on it. There's my email. When I'm done, my favorite button, and I'm back here. Oh, what's the next thing? Evaluate my roster. Okay, well, there's my roster. And then and then this is the drop-down menus. I can sort by offense, defense, the entire team, by position. I can sort by personal information, which is, you know, the nuts and bolts of a player. I can look at their individual attribute rankings. These are on a scale of 1 to 100. I can look at their offensive and defensive rankings, special teams rankings. So, you know, this one just has 4 drop downs. This is all the drop downs by position. I can view player development from training camp, and when we run training camp, it will show me any increases or decreases in their information. Favorite button. What's next? View the recruit ranking report to pick your recruits to focus on. Now, that's a waste to me because that brings me to this list, and it's just basically color coded here. So I never use that one, and I never use that one. The only one I use is this one, the recruiting screen itself. Now we are in, let me go back here. So we have training camp, the season itself, the regular season and the postseason, and the off season, where you get job offers. As the coach and AD, you hire and fire staff members, deal with player transfers, recruiting, and training camp, and then you start back over. So right now we are in recruiting runs from weeks 8 to 17, and we're in week 10. So we're just 2 weeks in, and this is getting prepped for the 3rd week of recruiting. So I click on that screen there, and that brings me to this screen. You'll notice my left bar and my bottom bar stayed the same. And again, the number of drop-down menus. I can sort my players by every high school player in the country. I can sort just by high school. I can sort by every player in the country, high school and JUCO. I can sort by high school only, JUCO players. Once I have a player on my watch list, which I control that by clicking on a player. So Elroy Reyna, now here's his information. I add him to my watch list. Boom. Or I can remove him from my watch list. Okay. Now I don't have him on my watch list because I have not scouted or recruited him yet. So no reason for me to watch him. And you can see the color difference. If they're on my watch list, they're yellow. If they're not, they're white. So everything defaults to white earlier in the game, and you can see that here. Everybody's white because I haven't recruited anybody that's only got a 1 interest in my team. Let's see, what else? So again, just, once you have them, I can sort by just the guys on my watch list. I can look at my recruiting information. Have they had a visit yet? Have I made them an offer? Have they committed? Now the commits automatically hide. So we just finished week 2, and here you can see I signed this inside linebacker Gary Porter, but if we scroll down a little bit, let's go to personal, because I lost a couple of players. Okay, there they are, but I want to look at my watch list. Okay, there they are. All right, so Espinoza, defensive tackle, went to Penn State. I did not recruit him. I scouted him, and I had recruiting money, but I had not offered him a scholarship. Stanley, I was going after with a scholarship. He went to Texas Christian. Beasley and Smith went to Maryland. So again, that defaults to hide them automatically, so it's not cluttering up your list, because once they've signed, those guys are off the board. You can't change their mind. They're gone. So this deals only with the people that I am still efforting to sign. So you can sort, the recruiting, you can sort by all that information. I can sort by position. I can sort by regions. I can sort by individual states. I can sort by what star recruit they are, a 5-star, 4-star, 1-star. And then I can sort by interest levels, 10, 9, 8, 7, etc. So, that's, you can fine tune everything in here. And that's awesome. That's one thing I love a lot. Now, the other thing is, let's say I want to sort by, and let's go back up to the entire pool. All right, I want to sort by national ranking, so that's clickable. Love that. Okay, I can sort by position ranking, so every player that's rated number 1 at their position in the country. But then I can sort by that, but then I can sort, now you notice he's only a 2 interest, a 4 interest, a 6, a 6, a 10, a 2. Anything below a 7, a 6 on occasion, you can't sign because they're not interested in you. Okay? And the same thing, you typically don't see 1-star guys with very high interest levels if you're a high-level program. Think real life, a 1-star athlete's not going to have a shot to get a scholarship to go to Alabama or Florida State or Ohio State. So they're not going to have an interest. They may dream about going to those schools, but in reality, they're not going to have an interest because that school's not going to be interested in them. So they don't clutter the game up by generating high interest levels for players that don't make sense for your program. A top-tier program is going to attract 4- and 5-star prospects. Here we're an excellent prestige team with an 83 prestige. We finished number 4 in the country last year. So, we're going to have 4 or 5 stars for the most part with an occasional 3-star. But even looking at my 5 stars, which is noted by these blue players, there's a lot of them that are not interested in coming to my school. So I can't go out and just pick and choose. USC can't recruit every player in the nation because some of those players in Florida are going to want to go to Florida State. Some of those players in the Midwest are going to want to go to Michigan and Ohio State. Some of those players down in Texas are going to want to go to Texas and OU. And no matter what USC would do, those players aren't interested in SC, no matter how good they might be, and vice versa. So you can sort by national ranking, but then I can sort by interest as well, and it keeps my national ranking intact while then putting all my 10s at the top, and I can scroll down, and there's my 10s. And, then I go into the 9s right there, the 8s, etc., etc. So the detail that I can dial in on or sort by is huge. Love that. And then being able to then sort that out in ways that make sense. If I want only the guys that are highly interested, but then I want to look at them in the order that the game is judging them best to worst, it doesn't do me any good to sort that out. In fact, there's a basketball game that does this. I sort by interest, and it's very high, high, average, low, very low. But when I'm looking at all my guys that are very high, it may be number 100, number 3, number 242, number 17, number 6, number 1, number 29, and it just, you actually have to go into each player and figure out, all right, what's their ranking, and then if you do it by ranking, then you can't tell what their interest is. So the fact that I can do both is huge, because that makes recruiting so much easier to dial in on the players that are interested and the players that I want. And then I can tell at a glance here, yellow, I've already recruited these guys. White, so, if I come in, like I came in this week, I went down and I picked my top white guy, the guys that are wearing white text, and I was able to click on them, scout them, recruit them. Oh, and when you scout or recruit, they automatically get added to your watch list. You don't have to click it. So it automates some of the buttons based on what you're doing. You can add to the watch, but if you scout or recruit, they also get added to your watch. So you don't have to click all 3 buttons. You only have to click 2. Time-saving stuff that shows a lot of foresight and thought went into designing the layout of the game and how it worked. Love that. Again, once I'm in here, my favorite button, boom, I'm right back out. So that's kind of the recruiting part that I love, the layout here. What else? This next part I think will be the last part, because I don't want, I could just go on and on about this game because I've played it for so long. 11 years. I know it inside and out. When you're the coach of a program, you make all the decisions, and all of those decisions have ramifications, and that applies to real life as well as in the game. What do I mean by that? Well, again, we have training camp, season, and off season. So I can't get into camp and season because we're not there, but I can get into off season, history, options, and online. Speaking of online, this is where you would export your file, and then you have to go in and use and upload it through an FTP client that's on your league site. OOTP, for an example, that's the baseball game. They have incorporated with new technology in their last couple of versions the ability to import and export from within the game itself. So you actually have an FTP file that comes with the file in the game, and then when I hit export, it would automatically export it to the website if you're connected to the internet. And so there's no more exporting and then finding the export and then attaching it to the website itself. Much simpler than this is. This is not hard, but just much simpler because technology has advanced to allow that. That's one big thing. But back to the decision making. Favorite button. Let's take a look at my staff. Okay. Now, this has your team info, your schedule, scores, so you see everything at a glance. Now, this is from last year. Until we flip over to the next season, which again, we're down here. When you restart up here at week 1, that's when that would reset to showing your new schedule. And actually, that would not reset until you did your scheduling for the new year. Well, actually, yes, it would, because it would show all your off weeks. So, these scores would disappear. Your out-of-conference games would disappear. You'd get the new generated schedule for the new season because, in this game, you do not play each conference team. I will play South Florida in week 5 next year. I won't play UConn in week 4. It may be week 8 for UConn and week 11 for South Florida. That's generated just like a new schedule in real life every year. Like that too. It keeps it randomized and it shows that it's real, and that helps with the immersion of the game feeling real. but we're talking about, we can look at our evaluation from this year, our budget. Okay. In your budget screen, you can assign dollar figures to how much you want to allocate to recruiting to each region. Well, West Virginia is over here, right? So I'm going to spend more money in the Atlantic East, and my money shows that. Now I'm not maxed. It goes up to 40,000. Why am I not maxed? Well, because my budget's not high enough to afford everything that I've got. I want max dollars for every player because I don't know what players I'm going to want or have interest from. And I want a good medical staff to help keep my players healthy and on the field, or to help them recover quickly from injuries. I want a high strength and conditioning to help develop players over the 4 years they're in the program. I want high on tutors to keep them eligible academically so they're not missing games because they couldn't pass a class. My coaches, 700,000 is the max. A special teams coach, you could get one for 100 to 125,000. This is pretty high. I'm actually going to probably fire that guy and try to hire somebody cheaper, but he's probably really, really good. Again, I just took over West Virginia this off season, so I've only been at the helm 2 weeks. All of these decisions were made at the beginning of the season that just ended. So I won't have a chance to make the decisions on these until after recruiting's done. Again, we finish recruiting. I'll be making those decisions here, but then those won't come into play until we get back down here again. Okay. Team staff. You have three coaches. You have an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and a special teams coach. Now your coordinators, and again, this is something, you have your coach, but it shows the coaching history of that school. So I have only been here, I just took over this year, but it shows the entire history of the school right there. My offensive coordinator, it shows him, every school he's been at. Defensive coordinator, same thing. Special teams coach, same thing. And as I suspected, he's pretty good. They do retire. They will opt out of their contract if they feel they're underpaid or they feel they're better, they can qualify for a better school. Doesn't happen every year, but it can happen. What type of offense or defense they like to run. Doesn't mean you have to run that. You just get some benefits from running their offense. But you could certainly, he likes the West Coast. I can run an option attack. I can run a spread attack. I can run, a run and shoot. I can run anything. But if I choose West Coast, I will get some benefits. Very small, doesn't break the game. Probably 90% of the time I run something different from what my coach does. So I don't let that bother me. But look at the details. He has a motivation skill. That's basically the ability to get more out of your players than they're capable of. And these are all color-coded, but blue is very good. Green is good. Yellow is average. Orange is below average. And red is poor. Now, just like in real life, everybody has flaws. So this guy's not great at scouting wide receivers, and he can't develop a wide receiver for anything. Okay, my defensive coordinator, and you notice I didn't click on that. I used the up and down arrows because it's highlighted in blue. Love keyboard shortcuts. Love being able to scroll through stuff with my keyboard instead of having to click and drop down. Just much easier to pop through there than open, find it, click. Just quicker to do that. So user friendliness, user interface, very friendly, like that. You ask for what I like, I'm telling you what I like. Sometimes it's just really minor stuff. Anyway, back to the decisions. So I've got to balance this guy's salary against what he can do. Okay? Now, maybe, let's see, Army. Okay, here's Army. Again, just clicked on an opponent down in my thing, and I can see their stuff. So here's their OC. A little bit cheaper than me, but look at the skill difference. Okay, a couple of oranges. Not very good at scouting running backs, not very good at developing running backs or receivers, but he can still develop quarterbacks and linemen very well, and he's not horrible at this. Now, what does that mean in real life, or what does that mean from a game perspective? Well, this guy's bad at receivers, right? So let's look at my roster, and then we'll go down and look at receivers. And then I'm going to sort by their potential. This is their current rating. This is their potential rating. So my juniors have been developing. They're all in the 60s with basically mid-70s potential. You look at my freshman, he's a 50. He's only at a 36. This sophomore, he's at 72, so he's in line with these guys. Do you think he's going to go from a 51 to a 68 in 1 year? Now, this guy did redshirt. You can tell that by the parentheses. So maybe if he redshirted, that's giving him 2 years of development. I will probably get to that level. The odds of any of these guys, this guy might, Smith, the redshirt, might get close to he might make the 70s with another year of training and training camp. These guys are probably going to cap out right around 70 or 68, 69 for him. So they're not going to reach their full potential. Why? Because of our coach. View player development. I believe there's somewhere in here that says there's somewhere, it's not this screen, but there is somewhere that you can see your coach's ability while you're in here. What that shows is their changes. So you can see this guy went up +1 in running ability. This guy went up +2, +1 in hands, +1 in route running. And you can have negatives, but typically they're going to either have no changes, or you can see very minimal changes every year. So, that does not correlate to an automatic +1. That might have got him 2, 3, 4 points here. So he might have been around a 61, 62 last season. That's a guess, but, with the experience, I think that's pretty close. Let's go back to our staff. And again, you don't have to go back to the home page. I can use this toolbar and bounce to right where I want to go. But anytime I want, I can get back to that page. So that ability just to move with this toolbar is helpful. So, I have to judge. So motivation, offensive game planning. When you set a game plan, remember, we're not playing the games out head-to-head like Madden. We actually export a file. The commissioner then imports those to his game, simulates the week where the computer runs a computer versus computer matchup based on what you've put in as the head coach. His game plan rating determines how accurately he follows that game plan. Now, again, everybody's fallible. Let's say, just for example, I ran a game plan with 100% or 50% passes, 50% runs. If he's blue, I'm going to be somewhere close to a 50-50 split. Might be 45% to 55%, but it'll be pretty close. If he was red there, I might end up at 90% passing and 10% running, or 90% running and 10% passing. And a lot of that variance also comes into real life. If you're losing the game, you're going to have to pass more to try to catch up. So that could be part of the reason. But he will toe the line closer to what you're wanting him to do with a good game plan rating. With a bad game plan rating, let's see, he's average, so I'd see more variance there. He's really good. Okay, he's below average, so I would expect he would, you'd see some pretty severe discrepancies with that. Oh, the return button brings me back to my school, my information. Scouting, how well, okay, when you're going in and you are scouting these players in recruiting, Okay, so I have scouted Stephen James. Now, I don't have any pitches showing up yet, but I do have some, so let's find one. My watch list. Here's one. All right, so you can see I have all this additional information. So, he's an 81 in catching, 69 in tackling, 90 in coverage. My coach is blue. Very good. So those are going to be pretty accurate numbers, right? Do I have a receiver in here? Yes, I do. All right. A 79 in running, a 73 in catching, a 69 durability. Remember, he's not as good at scouting receivers or developing them, so these numbers could be off a little bit. Now, he's not horrible, or yeah, he actually was horrible. Okay, so these could be significantly off. It shows that he's a 4-star player. Maybe he's only a 3-star player. Maybe he's only got a 60 in catching and a 70 in running. Maybe his durability is only a 50. You know, maybe it's higher. Maybe he's got an 82 durability and a 70 in running, but a 90 in catching. You know, I don't know because my coach, you know, well, actually he is average, so those will be closer. But if he was red in scouting, that would lead to bigger discrepancies in what I would see when I went into my recruiting screen and actually recruited that player. Okay, hope that makes sense. And then development, we just talked about how well they can reach or get close to their potential as a player. That also plays into whether they can bust or not. And typically that's another thing. Not every player always develops the same way. You'll have one player that may develop and reach his potential. Another player with the same exact ratings or real close might only get to that 60 out of 70 rating as a senior. You know, so that's, you know, those are things. And each one has the same ability. Defense, scouting, developing, motivation and game plan, special teams, motivation, scouting, and development. There is no game plan for special teams. You just tell them what the only thing we can do is, and I can't do it here because we're not in the season, but you can set up the maximum length field goal that you want to try, and then your offensive coordinator will determine in his game planning whether or not to attempt a field goal or go for it on 4th down based on how you have set up your game plan. You can set up what percentage you want to go for it on 4th down. If there's a maximum, say 4th and 2 that you're willing to go for it, maybe a field position, things of that nature. You do get visits from recruits. That brings them in to visit an on-campus visit. But again, I think that's the big stuff. I like the toolbar because no matter where I'm at here, I can click over here and then jump into another area that I want to go to right from there without having to exit out and then go find it somewhere else on the interface and then get to it there. It's just really quick point and click. The ability to have this, at a nutshell, that you can kind of see all your opponents. Not just your opponents, you can see every single team in the country. And it gives you basic information, and then I can pull that up off to the side in the toolbar for that team. So I can use this in scouting. Who's their best player? Who's their best defensive player? Maybe I want to scheme against that guy. Oh, inside linebacker. You remember Lawrence Taylor? You don't think teams schemed against him? Bet they did. So, you'd factor that into your game plan. Want to get out of that? Either pop back to your team or favorite button back to the main page. So, everything's very condensed, very concise, but there's a lot of information that you have access to without even changing screens. You're not going anywhere. We're still here. And it's just filters here that are easy to access. I'm not having to pick filters, apply them, and then pick more filters and apply those. Where you're, it's just really quick and easy list with these drop downs. Very easy to use, very user friendly. The ability to pop back, right to your home page. The checklist is huge because I think that helps, especially new owners. And I know there are some games that they send you an email with, hey, check this week. But sometimes you don't even know that you have an email because it's not obvious. So when it's here, it's there. I mean, this is the first screen you're going to see. Even if you don't hit the button, this is the screen that you will see every time you log into the game. And then you have to maneuver off of this screen. So it tells you where you're at, what you have to do, whether you got emails, and then it gives you access to just a plethora of information. So, I love that. The UI, the interface, the ability to get, to various, anywhere in the game from one place, love it. The fact that it's very basic, more bells and whistles would be neat, but, do I need them to play the game, or do they detract and make it harder for me to figure out what to do? Sometimes you can have too much icing on the cake and you just don't want to finish eating it. I went to a party like that not too long ago. And then, of course, like I said, the decision making. Having a staff, having their ratings actually mean something in how it translates. Having your decision making when it comes to setting your budget and how much you offer to pay your coaches. All of that, the more I spend here, then the less I have to spend in actual recruiting. The more I spend in recruiting and the more in coaches, maybe I have to cut back on my medical, strength, or academics. So I have players get hurt more, stay hurt longer, don't develop as much, fail out more. All of that comes into play just from how you set your budget. I think that's one of the great things is, pretty much there's a lot of decisions to be made by yourself as a GM, as a head coach, and the AD. All those decisions have real world ramifications when it comes to the game itself. And that's the other thing that I really like in addition to the UI and the interface. So anyway, we've gone on pretty long, 37 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but I did want to hit. So the two basic things: the decision making and how that plays in, and how it affects your game, and the ease of getting around, filtering, sorting, and finding the information you need without it being a chore or trying to figure your way through hoops to get to it. The only other thing I would point out, I mentioned, I think, the online exporting, having that set up to actually import the file and export the file from within the game would be, make things so much simpler on owners for online leagues. The other stuff is, for whether you're playing a solo league or a multiplayer league, but the ability to import and export from within the game just makes it so much simpler. Out of the Park's been doing that with their baseball game for forever. Fast Break College Basketball, you have to download the file manually and then unzip it, but you can export it from within the game. Even that's a little bit better than this because I have to, download the file, unzip it, extract it into the correct folder, hope I got the correct folder, and then export it, and then put, so basically exporting, I have to click on this, it creates a COA file, and then I have to go into I'll just pull up my league here. So I have to go into here, go into the upload, browse and find my file, put in my password and LP, upload it, and you can see I've already put West Virginia in today, and Texas. Those are my two teams. But that's the process. I've got to start here, export, then come here, then find the file, attach the file, put in this information, upload. So that gets very convoluted, whereas if I had just a one button, export, click, and then it's here automatically, so much simpler. And then the other thing is the customizability. Now, this game, you have to have Microsoft Access. And then you have to export the league files, open them in Access, and then you can edit pretty much anything. You can change team names, you can change conference affiliations. Like in the last few years of college football, we've had a lot of movement of teams from one conference to another. We've seen the expansion of conferences. The Big 12 lost their conference championship game. So we can mimic all of that day to day in our own league if we want to be true to life. But the fact that you have to open that up in a delineated file in Access and then go in and find the stuff and then recode it to make that change and then import it back into the game. If you could do all that in game itself, if you had an option, in your options, and you would have an option to, in a multiplayer, that would have to be protected by. Now you can edit players in here. Well, I can't because I don't have the commissioner password, but so that is, you can edit player information, but to change the details like school names, conference affiliations, turning conference games on and off, changing the layout from, say, a 10-team conference with one division to a 12 or 14-team conference with two divisions and a conference title game. If you could do all that within the game itself, that would be huge, just to make it so much easier on the player. And again, that's going to come into play whether a multiplayer league or an individual in solo league play. Now you'll notice I do have the real conference, except they're in the Big 12 now. The real school name. That did not come with the game. It came with default generic graphics and conference and school names. So they might be called the West Virginia WVU, Hunters or something like that. This is actually, and that's due to legal copyrights and things. But that doesn't stop third-party companies from creating a file that you can import and update that information very easily. So making sure that your game is available to do that, accessible to be friendly with third-party patches, so to speak, that would create stuff like this. Not change the format of the game, but just some of the data, like conferences and team names and logos. Maybe even importing these are all generic face things, but maybe having real player faces, and you could have those to where they would recycle. So I might pull up this guy and it would show, just as an example, if somebody put together a photo pack, maybe that would look like Archie Griffith, or maybe it would look like Mike Hart from Michigan, or maybe Pat Hayden when he was quarterback at USC. So you could have like a historical database. Wouldn't be the real names, but it could use real player photos, and they could be headshots. Maybe you would put together one with like an action shot, kind of like this, and it would show if it was a receiver, show him going up for a pass. Defensive tackle, maybe it would show him kind of trying to beat the blocker. Just something like that. That might be kind of interesting. But certainly having it accessible to where third-party people can create things like this, for everybody to use, would be very, very nice and user-friendly. So anyway, hope I hit some good highlights. I hope you guys saw some things in there that you like. Like I said, I still love the game immensely. Still enjoy playing it, both solo and multiplayer. In my free time. But anyway, that's about it. So, hey, thanks for watching, and hope you got a little bit out of that. You can also check out on my YouTube channel, Raging Cajun 77346. I do have an 8-video series of this game where I actually kind of go through every week of the season. So I kind of walk you down the whole seasonal checklist, so to speak, and what to do and what the screens look like. So, that gives you a little bit more look at certain screens and how they look if you want to take a look at that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.